They said she was mad. They said her baby was cursed. Because every day, rain or shine, she backed her baby upside down. Head down, legs up. Just like a bat hanging from a tree. The women at the river laughed every morning when she passed. "Oh, that widow again," they'd whisper. "Does she not know it's a sin to carry a child like that?" But that morning, when she appeared on the forest path, the laughter died. Her eyes were calm, her steps slow and firm. And her baby hung quietly behind her, swaying gently, upside down. No one spoke as she filled her pot with water. Even the river seemed to hold its breath. Then one woman, too bold for her own good, called out, "What kind of mother are you?" Amma turned, looked her straight in the eyes, and said quietly, "The kind who saves lives." The sun was already high over the village of Asanka when the women gathered at the river to fetch water. Their buckets rested beside them, and as usual, they talked about everyone except themselves. You could always count on the riverside for the latest gossip. "Have you seen that woman again?" one of them whispered, bending close. "The widow, the one who always backs her baby upside down." The others burst into quiet laughter. "Oh, I saw her this morning," another woman said. "She walked past the market like she didn't see anyone. Head high, eyes forward, as if we are all beneath her." "But tell me," the third woman asked, "what kind of mother carries her baby with the head down and the legs up? The child's blood will rush to his head." One of the older women spat into the water and shook her head. "I tell you, that one is not normal. Her husband died not long after that baby was born. That is not ordinary, my daughters. Something is wrong in that woman's house." The women murmured in agreement, shaking their heads as if their judgment would drive away evil itself. And just as they spoke, the sound of footsteps came from the forest path. They turned. There she was. Oma, the quiet widow of Asanka. Slim, graceful, her wrapper neat, her head scarf tied perfectly. And behind her, strapped tightly with a faded blue cloth, was her baby, hanging upside down. The laughter stopped. Even the splashing of water seemed to quiet as she approached. Amma did not look left or right. She stepped into the shallow part of the river, dipped her pot, and filled it with water. The baby was silent, sleeping soundly against her back, his small legs swaying gently in the morning breeze. One of the women couldn't hold her tongue. "Amma," she called out loudly, "doesn't the child's head pain him when you carry him like that?" Amma looked up, her dark eyes calm but unreadable. She smiled faintly. "No," she said softly. "He sleeps better this way." The women exchanged glances. "Oh, sleeps better," the oldest woman muttered. "That is how witchcraft begins." Amma said nothing. She lifted her water pot onto her head and turned to leave. As she walked past them, one woman hissed under her breath, "Mad woman." Amma heard her, but she did not stop. She only whispered to the baby on her back, "Hush, my son. They don't understand." Not yet. By the time she disappeared down the footpath toward her small hut, the women were already talking again. They said the baby's eyes sometimes glowed at night. They said Amma spoke to the forest spirits. And that once, a man saw her walking barefoot under the moon, whispering to herself. In Asanka, gossip traveled faster than wind, and soon, even the chief had heard of the widow who backed her baby upside down. That evening, a messenger came to her hut. He stood outside and called out, "Amma, daughter of Kwaku the potter. The chief summons you to the palace tomorrow morning. You must come." Amma bowed slightly. "I will come," she said. Inside her hut, she sat beside her small fire and looked at the baby who lay quietly beside her. He was barely a year old, yet his eyes were deep, too deep for a child. Sometimes when he stared at her, it felt as if an old spirit was looking through him. She touched his tiny hand and whispered, "Kojo, they will ask me why." and I cannot tell them. That night, as she lay on her mat, she dreamed of the forest again, of the old woman with the glowing eyes. Her voice echoed in Oma's mind. 7 years, Oma. 7 years must he hang between earth and sky. Forget this, and the darkness will rise again. Oma woke up sweating. The fire had died out, and the night was cold. She held her child close, whispering over and over. Sleep, my son. Sleep upside down, so the world may sleep in peace. By morning, the entire village had gathered in the chief's courtyard. They came not for justice, but for gossip. Even the children peeped through the fence, hoping to see something strange. Oma stood before the chief, her baby tied to her back as always. The crowd murmured, laughing quietly until the chief raised his staff. Oma, he said, his voice deep, we have heard many things about you. They say you back your child upside down like an animal. Tell us why. What is the meaning of this? Oma bowed her head. Nana, she said quietly, I mean no disrespect. I only do what I must to protect my child. The chief frowned. Protect him from what? Oma raised her eyes. They were calm, but there was pain in them. From himself, she said. The crowd gasped. From himself, one man shouted. This woman is possessed. Another woman cried out, that baby is a demon. She must be stopped. The chief struck his staff on the ground. Silence. He looked at Oma again. You speak in riddles. We will send for the priest. If what they say is true, your child will be taken for cleansing. Oma's voice trembled as she said, the priest cannot help you, Nana. What lives in this child does not fear holy water. It fears only love and obedience. The people began to murmur again. Some laughed, some hissed, some prayed under their breath. The chief waved his hand, dismissing her. Go home, Oma. But if anything happens again in this village, I will not protect you. Oma nodded and turned to leave, her baby still hanging upside down behind her. The people watched in silence as she walked away. For the first time, even the gossipers could not find words. That night, a strange wind blew across Asanka. It came from the forest, cold, whistling, and sharp. The fires went out one by one. Dogs howled at the moon. And somewhere in the darkness, a baby began to cry, not ordinary crying, but deep, echoing wails that sent shivers down every spine. The next morning, when the villagers gathered again at the river, no one laughed. No one gossiped. They fetched their water in silence. Because during the night, 3 goats had died. And beside the river, strange footprints had appeared, small, like a baby's, but burnt black into the earth. And though no one said it out loud, every mind in Asanka thought of the same thing. Oma, and the baby she carried upside. The next morning, fear moved through Asanka like smoke. The women at the river did not talk. The men at the market did not joke. Even the chief's guards looked uneasy. Because everyone had heard the crying in the night. Everyone had seen the burnt footprints by the river, small, like a baby's. And everyone knew only one woman in the village carried a baby that never cried by day, yet made the dogs howl after dark. Oma. The chief called for the village priest, Okomfo Bodu, a man known for his strong charms and heavy voice. By sunset, he stood in the village square, cowries in his hand and white chalk across his forehead. Bring the woman, he commanded. When Oma arrived, she did not look afraid. She walked calmly into the circle of villagers, her baby strapped upside down behind her. The priest studied her for a long moment. Then he began to chant in a deep, rhythmic voice. He threw his cowries on the ground, looked at them, then looked up sharply. There is great darkness here, he said. The people gasped. It clings to this child like smoke to fire. His soul is not one, but two. The crowd broke into frightened murmurs. The chief leaned forward. What does that mean, Okomfo? The priest frowned. It means this child carries another spirit, an ancient one. If that spirit wakes, not even the gods will help us. He turned to Oma. Woman, speak the truth. What did you do before this child was born? Oma hesitated, her eyes wet. I begged the gods for another son, she said softly. My first child died before his first moon. I prayed in the forest, and someone answered. Who? The priest demanded. Oma's lips trembled. An old woman. Her name was Abrua. She told me my next child would live only if I carried him upside down. She said he has two souls, one light, one shadow, and that if he is turned upright, the darkness will wake. The crowd erupted. She went to a witch, someone shouted. She made a deal with spirits, cried another. She should be banished. The priest raised his staff and the noise died down. You have brought this evil upon yourself, woman, he said. You will stay in your hut for 7 nights. If the darkness does not strike again, you and your child will be cleansed. But if anything happens before the 7th day, we will cast you out. Amma bowed her head. As you say. She turned and walked home, her baby still hanging quietly behind her. But that night, as she sat alone in her hut, she could feel it. The air was heavy, and the baby's small body felt warmer than usual. Kojo stirred and whimpered. His eyes opened, glowing faintly in the dark. Amma whispered, trembling. No, my son, not yet. Please, not yet. She held him close and began to sing, her voice shaking as thunder roared in the distance. Sleep, my child, sleep upside down. Your mother is here, your mother is strong. The baby's glow dimmed. The thunder faded. The night grew quiet again. But outside her hut, someone had been watching. A young man, the same drunkard who always laughed the loudest at Oma's back. He had followed her home, hiding behind the trees. Now, crouched in the darkness, he whispered to himself, so it's true. The witch sings to the baby. I will see this with my own eyes. That night, while the village slept, you crept into Oma's hut. She lay on her mat, exhausted, the baby tied to her back as always. You moved quietly, his breath sharp with palm wine. He bent down and untied the cloth. He wanted to see the baby's face, to prove the curse was real. He lifted the baby gently and turned him upright. And in that moment, the world changed. The fire in Oma's hut went out with a hiss. The air grew cold. Then the baby's eyes opened, and burned like hot coal. You stumbled back. What is this? The child began to cry, not like a baby, but like thunder tearing through clouds. Wind roared through the hut, knocking down pots and baskets. Outside, the trees bent as if bowing to some unseen power. You screamed and ran into the night. But as he fled, his shadow twisted behind him, long, thin, and alive. Amma woke up to chaos. The baby was hot against her chest, screaming with power. She grabbed him and turned him upside down again, crying, Sleep, my son. Sleep. But the spirit was awake now. A dark cloud burst from the hut, racing across the village like black smoke. The goats bleated, chickens flapped, dogs ran for the bush. People woke up screaming as their fires went out. The chief came out of his hut, shouting, What is happening? And then they saw it, the black smoke rising from Omar's hut, shaped like a man with wings and burning eyes. The priest stumbled backward, clutching his staff. It is the shadow soul, he cried. The darkness in the child has awakened. Amma burst from her hut, tears streaming down her face, her baby clutched to her chest. Please, she screamed. He is not evil. He's just a child. Let me calm him. But the priest pointed his staff at her. Do not touch him. The spirit inside would destroy us all. Amma fell to her knees, sobbing. The baby's cry turned into a deep, rumbling sound that shook the ground. Then the spirit's voice echoed through the wind. You called me cursed. You called her mad. Now you shall taste your own fear. The black smoke rose high and exploded into the sky, swallowing the moon. The entire village went dark. Men dropped their spears. Children clung to their mothers and cried. Amma held her baby tight, whispering frantically, Kojo, please. It's Mama. Please come back. Then, slowly, the glow faded from his eyes. The wind stopped. The smoke thinned. And the baby went quiet in her arms. Amma looked up at the terrified faces around her. I told you, she whispered. He only needs love, not fear. She turned and walked back into her hut, her steps heavy, her eyes hollow. The people did not follow. They just stood there, staring at the quiet doorway where the woman and her upside-down baby disappeared. That night, no one slept in Asanka. They kept their fires burning till morning. And for the first time, not a single tongue dared to speak her name. But deep inside her hut, Amma sat awake, holding her child close. She knew this was only the beginning. The 7th year was coming, and with it, the true test of her promise. For many days after that night, the people of Asanka lived in fear. No one went near Amma's hut. Children were warned never to play by the forest path. And even the chief's guards refused to patrol that side of the village after sunset. But Amma stayed inside with her baby, Kojo. She spoke little. She ate little. Every day, she would tie him upside down, hum softly, and whisper prayers no one else could understand. She knew the truth, the spirit had not gone away. It was only sleeping again, waiting for the right time to rise. And that time was coming soon. Because the old woman, Abrua, the forest priestess, had told her long ago. The 7th year will decide everything. If he makes it through without turning upright, the dark soul will return to the earth. But if the darkness wakes again, not even you, Amma, can stop it. And now, 6 years had passed. The boy was growing. He could talk, laugh, even run. But Amma never let him far from her sight. She carried him still, upside down when she could, wrapped in cloth when she couldn't. The villagers mocked her even more now. She's still carrying that child like a bat, they said. Look at his age. His head will never be right again. But Amma ignored them. She only prayed for one more year. Then one evening, something happened that changed everything. A fire broke out at the edge of the forest, wild, spreading fast. The men of the village rushed to fight it. Amma, too, ran out of her hut, carrying Kojo on her back. The flames were huge, licking the trees, threatening to reach the farms. Suddenly, Amma heard a voice from the forest, familiar, haunting. Amma. She turned sharply. It was the voice of Abrua. Faint, yet clear as the wind. Amma, bring the boy. The time has come. Amma froze. Her heart raced. No, she whispered. Not yet. He is not 7. But the voice came again, firm and echoing. If you do not come now, all will burn. Without thinking, Amma ran into the forest. Villagers called after her, but she didn't hear. She ran barefoot through smoke and ash, deeper and deeper, until she reached the old cotton tree, the same one from her dreams. The air there was cold and still. Even the fire seemed to stop before touching it. Then Abrua appeared. Her white cloth shimmered like moonlight, her eyes glowing softly. Amma, she said, you have done well. You kept the darkness asleep for 6 years. But the 7th is here, and the two souls must separate. Amma's voice trembled. Separate? How? Abrua looked at the child, who stared back silently. The light must remain in him. The darkness must go, and it must have a vessel. Oma understood instantly. Her tears fell. She shook her head. No. Not me. The old woman sighed. Only a mother's love is strong enough to hold what he cannot. If you refuse, he will destroy this village and himself. Oma clutched Kojo tightly. He looked up at her, confused but calm. Mama, he said softly, why are you crying? Oma smiled through her tears. Because I love you too much, my son. Abrua raised her hand. The wind began to circle them, humming with power. Say the words, Oma, she said. Offer yourself. Oma closed her eyes and whispered. Take what is dark in him and place it in me. Let him live, even if I do not. A blinding light burst from the child's chest, swirling like smoke and fire. Oma screamed, clutching him tighter as the wind roared. The villagers who had followed her gasped from a distance, shielding their eyes. For a moment, it looked as if both mother and child were burning, wrapped in golden light and black flame. Then, silence. When the wind stopped, Oma was lying on the ground, still. Kojo sat beside her, crying softly. The darkness was gone. The sky cleared. The fire that had threatened the forest died out on its own. The villagers came closer. The chief knelt beside Oma and felt no breath. She was gone. Kojo held her hand, whispering, "Wake up, Mama, wake up." But she did not move. Then the old woman's voice echoed one last time through the forest. She gave her life so that light may remain. Remember her, and never judge what you do not understand. The villagers bowed their heads. Some wept. Even the priest could not speak. They carried Oma's body back to the village and buried her near the big tree by the river, the place where the gossip once began. That same evening, the wind that always brought fear returned, but this time, it was soft, gentle, almost like a blessing. And the baby footprints by the river disappeared forever. Years passed. Kojo grew into a fine young man, quiet, wise, and kind. He became a healer, known far beyond Asanka. People came from other villages to seek his help. And though no one spoke of it openly, everyone knew who he was, the boy whose mother had carried him upside down. Every year, on the day of his mother's death, the women of Asanka went to the river and carried their babies upside down, just for a few moments, to honor Oma, the woman they once called mad. They would say, "May the love of a mother protect our children from all that we do not see." And even today, when the wind blows softly through the trees of Asanka, the people say it sounds like a woman's voice whispering, "Sleep, my child, sleep upside down. The world is safe, for now." And that is why in some parts of Ghana, when a child sleeps peacefully, they say, he rests upside down in his mother's love. Never judge what you do not understand. Sometimes, the strangest acts hide the deepest forms of love. Would you do what the mother did? Like, subscribe and share for more endless folktales.